Hi everybody, stay thriving. Welcome back to another video. Today I will be going through my to be read list. This is a list that I compiled about 2 to 3 months ago from books that TikTok and YouTube creators recommended. So I'll be going through my least favorite all the way up to my ultimate favorite. Starting from like my least favorite, the Anthropocene Reviewed. I think I'm saying that word right, by John Green. It was okay, but I just didn't find anything remarkable from the book. Not incredibly entertaining, and it's really not my style of book. The second to last is The Woman Destroyed. Sorry, I had to put my dog in a timeout, so I got her out now, and yeah, that was her whining. Baby, look at the camera and say hi. Say hi, baby girl. She's a little antsy right now. So let me continue. So like I was saying, The Woman Destroyed. The stories were all somewhat interesting, but it's just not my type of book. I like that it had the various stories and tellings of how the women were destroyed by society / love. My personal favorite story that The Woman Destroyed told had to be the last one. But the most interesting one definitely was the monologue. The narrator clearly isn't reliable, and I would have loved to hear the daughter's perspective. The next book is The Ministry of Time. It was an okay book. It definitely had a unique storyline. It's science fiction, so if you really like sci-fi, you'll probably like this book. It was an interesting story, just wasn't my favorite and just didn't really stick with me. But overall, it was a decent book. The next book on the list is Beautiful World, Where Are You? The story was okay, but for me it was a little bit anticlimactic. If you like everyday type of stories, then you'll probably like this book. But it really just didn't hit the spot for me. I would have been okay not reading it. Normal People. Again, this book is by the same author, Sally Rooney, and it was okay. Again, an everyday type of read or everyday type of story. But I'm also just not generally too impressed by romance genre of books. So that's also probably why I didn't like this book too much. The next book is Just Last Night. The story was pretty good. It did have somewhat of an interesting spin midway through. And I did like that spin. And it was also a pretty humorous book as well. Biggest thing though that I didn't like about this book is the writing style. It just didn't mesh with me. It wasn't a very easy read or a natural style of reading for me. The next book on the list is One Italian Summer. The story was an interesting way to tackle the subject of grief. At first the character really annoyed me, but then I realized that the way that she is handling the grief is very relatable. The book had very vivid imagery or a vivid way of telling the scenery of Italy. So if you're someone who likes super descriptive writing, you'll probably like this book, but I'm not someone who pictures things in my mind like that. So I didn't really care about all that. There are some confusing parts of the story, which is why this book wasn't ranked higher up, but overall it was a pretty good read. The next book is It's a Funny Story. I overall really liked the book. I liked the story, but it was a little bit cliche for me. That's why I ranked it number 11. The next book is Conversations on Love. Basically, this book, it was a bunch of different personal essays on the topic of love, whether that be, you know, romantic, familial, friendship, strangers. I liked hearing the various perspectives about love. It was a very insightful book, though I personally do not like essay type books or stories too much. But it wasn't a bad read. I liked it. It was insightful. Like I said, it just wasn't my preference. The next book is A Little Life. This story was very heartbreaking, guys. But I did think that the author did a great job of getting you emotionally connected to the narrator / main character, Jude. It was a very long story about trauma and how much trauma a person can take. I would have wished for either a happier ending or a more straight to the point story. Like, it just felt like a really long, drawn out story about trauma. But overall, I do think it was a good book. I did end up finishing it, and it was a pretty fat book, guys. So obviously something in it was good and doing its job at keeping me reading it, because It was a really long book, guys. It took me about a week, I think, to finish it. The next book on this list is called Ace of Spades. It was a story that definitely kept me on my toes and wondering who Ace was. I was not actually expecting Ace. It's an easy and enjoyable read. The audience is definitely young adults, but it was still an enjoyable read. The next book on this list is called Monday's Not Coming. It was a story about abuse and how the system basically failed to see the signs and protect the child, and it resulted in the death of, I believe, 2 children. But it focused mainly on Monday. This was a heartbreaking story, and the story needed to be told. I think it's based on true events, actually. Though the one thing about this book, I wish the story would have had multiple perspectives, not just from Monday's friend, but also from Monday's daughter, the mother of Monday, and maybe a call to action or an envisioning, because it does kind of have a call to action, but also an envisioning of what the system can do better to protect the children. The next story on this list is called 11 Minutes. It's a story about a girl growing up, learning about love and her body, and she ends up becoming a prostitute. She does eventually get out of that lifestyle once she falls in love. And also she just doesn't really want to stay stuck in the world of prostitution, because she realizes how it is a kind of like a trap. I really liked the book. It was relatable. It was interesting. It was a good book. The next book on the list is Acts of Desperation. It's a very interesting and relatable book from an unnamed narrator, recounting her experience with toxic love. It explores self-destruction and obsession or idealization of a lover wanting to receive love. Overall, I really liked that book as well. Next book is 7 Days in June. This book definitely had me smiling, and like I said, I'm not a romance type of girl, but I did really like this book. It's a book that kind of embodies what's meant for you will come for you. The book talks about the trauma that the main character goes through, and how you know, she finds someone who's her support system, and due to, you know, certain life events, they end up, you know, kind of splitting up and going separate ways, but then they come back together. And I thought it was really sweet. It was simple, but I thought it was also very, very nicely done, and it's an easy read as well. Now we're down to my top 3 book, guys. All 3 of these books were really, really good, so it was really hard to choose, you know, these top 3 and which order I would put it in. But, you know, this is what I decided. The next book is Winter Garden. I love this book a lot more than I was expecting. It basically told the story of trauma, going through war and grief. I really loved the ending. The ending was very unexpected, and overall, I just really love this book. I definitely want to read it again. The second book is The Invisible Life of Addie LaRue. Again, another book I really wasn't expecting to like as much as I did, but I love this book. It had a very interesting story. I love the author's writing style. And then my number 1 book that Booktok recommended is called Allegedly. It's by the same author as Monday's Not Coming, but I do actually like this book better. Most people like Monday's Not Coming better, but I like Allegedly better. I felt like this book kept me on my toes, and the ending was very unexpected for me. It had me shook, guys. I love the ending because it also left room for interpretation, and I think this book does a better job than Monday's Not Coming at showing how abuse can really affect a person. And I just really love this book. I love the perspective that the book is told from. It's a very interesting story, something I've never read before, so that's why I ranked Allegedly number 1. I am working on my next to be read list. These are the books that I have so far, so it's a preview of the books I'll probably be reviewing pretty soon. And if you guys have any other suggestions, leave it in the comments below, and I'll definitely if it sounds interesting, I'll definitely add it to my to be read list. All Her Little Secrets, The Ballad of Black Tom, Ring Shout, The Dream Hotel, Universality, Mainline Mama, Listen to Your Sister, The Life of Harad the Great and the Unexpected Diva. Firstborn Girl. All that I have on my list right now. My friend also recommended, I'm going to add this to my list as well, the Lagos Wife. Lagos. I don't know if I'm saying it right, but this is the book that my friend also recommended, so I'm gonna check that and add that to my to be read list. But again, if you guys have any suggestions, leave it in the comments below and I'll definitely try to get to it and put it in my next round of TBR books that I read.